another chapter in this amazing rivalry. I'm going to talk about that history with some fans who are already here.
Hell, look at this now.
I thought I smelled some aged cheese. Have a seat. Join us. You've got to be some kind of a masochist to come back here, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Cut the Cheese, Poke the Bear. I am Urza Master. With me, as always, is Lord Uther. And, boy, I tell you what, we are live for the first time ever here at Pending Rebrand. We are live on Facebook. We are live on YouTube. If you're not already a Pending Rebrand subscriber, I highly suggest you go below, hit subscribe, drop us a comment, and fun fact, if you're on YouTube, you can live chat us. Any of your comments, questions, we'll read them live on screen. And really good deal. I'm looking at everything, making sure it works, because this is the very first time we've gone live with Pending Rebrand. And tell you what, Lord Uther, it looks like we are live. And can I just say congratulations to the Green Bay Packers for kicking off the 2023-2024 season with a win over the Bears.
Yeah, it wasn't even, it wasn't even close, wasn't even a challenge for you. Oh, maybe the first two plays we were right there, like the first two plays, and that was it. It was all downhill from there. I was going to say, I thought maybe you were shaking your head saying, no, it wasn't even the first two plays that were going to make it happen.
Just but victory.
Yes, that's right. And obviously you're dressed for it as well with your gloves and everything. Like you're ready to go. And your Favre shirt. Look at you.
Going full retro.
You are the ultimate Favre fan there. So and
poke that bear.
I can't even look at that. Can't compete with that at all.
Oh, we're not done. We're not done. MVP? Anybody?
And a starting lineup too. I think I have a Michael Jordan one somewhere. I'm gonna have to try and find that.
Oh yeah, MJ. If we ever do an NBA podcast. But yeah, I mean, I have to say I was a little surprised at home, no less. Soldier Field, the Bears just didn't seem to show up. What happened? What went wrong?
That's the whole thing. Nothing went right, Where do you start? I could, I had a multitude of things written down. I think one of our first plays was an option that we ran, and I was trying to figure that one out. I mean, it's not like we're at a Northwestern game. We're at a Bears game, and I think the option went out many, many years ago. So if you're going to start off the game like that, I think that kind of
sets the tone.
And did it. So whether it's that, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You mentioned the option play there, and I'm a little flabbergasted still by the frequency with which I've seen it the last couple games here. Teams running the RPO or the true blue option that we know and love from years gone by. Why? I mean, it seemed like it was effective for Colin Kaepernick and a few of the real mobile quarterbacks that have been around since then. But why the Bears? And Justin Fields has an arm.
Well, I mean, let me take it one step further. I think at one point we ran the Wildcat on a sneak, and it was Cole Kmet. And why you're using Cole Kmet, and well, I know why, and I'll tell you why right now. But the idea of using Cole Kmet, you should be using Justin Fields, right? I mean, he's strong enough. He's got that push to get through there, but obviously the line doesn't. So you saw all the flaws of our offensive line this past weekend, along with and Fields made his mistakes too, and that's what I've been trying to think about and figure out this week, especially as I was talking to my friends in a group chat. Is it he's afraid, so he's checking down as fast as he can, and I saw a couple of breakdowns where like he looks for a second, boom, he just checks down and just throws it out there to the running back. Mm-hmm. And so is it fear of getting again creamed? Is it the idea they want him to kind of stay in that pocket a little bit more, and so he's a little jumpy? Is it an experience? There's those questions are still lingering, and I think people are very torn on if Fields is the guy or not. Some people say yes, some people say no. I'm still of the ilk that let's get a line in place first, and then we can make that decision. Let's not go, you know, I'm afraid we're going to pull a move here where we dump Justin Fields and he goes somewhere and becomes MVP at some point. I mean, I think he's got the talent and the skill. I just think he needs some help.
You know, and it's funny you say that because, of course, you know, we're past Thursday night football, and for those who watched that, you saw the Vikings kind of struggle with the same problems. I mean, and the Vikings over the weekend had the same problems. The offensive line, which they've been belly aching about since last season and years now, is just crap. I mean, and it really showed, I think, the games to kick off the season. If you don't have a real strong offensive line, you're not going to win a game. And I mean, and it's different now than I think it was in like my guy Favre's era, where, you know, your Iron Man pocket passer quarterbacks, they could stand in a bad pocket behind a bad line and make magic happen. But today's quarterbacks, they struggle with that big time, especially these mobile guys who are known for their RPOs. They're known for, you know, kind of just being dink and dunk quarterbacks, and or guys like Kirk Cousins or Justin Fields who, you know, have a reasonable arm. Kirk Cousins less so than Justin Fields, of course, but, you know, they can manage a pass downfield, but they need time. They're not quick passers. They're not a Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers. They are, you know, these guys aren't Hall of Fame guys, really. Justin Fields, maybe. He's still young, but certainly not Kirk Cousins. He's got, you know, on paper looks like a Hall of Fame quarterback maybe because of stat lines, but, you know, he's never going to be that guy, hopefully, because yeah, he can't win the game for you, and that becomes very evident when your offensive line is, I don't know what's going on in Minnesota. Their offensive line is garbage. The Bears, I think, have a better offensive line, but not by much. I mean, I was, you know, from a Packer fan perspective, I was grateful. I was like, all right, good. Our defense can really shine.
Right.
You know, and I'm looking at our defense going, yeah, these guys are looking really good. And then a good friend of mine reminds me, he's like, you are playing the Bears. I'm like, you're right.
Right, yeah.
So, you know, but I think, you know, and this is where Minnesota has fallen down so many times, and I think Chicago has too, but they have an opportunity here with Fields to not go down this same path of, it's the quarterback's fault. But we don't want to spend the money, the coin, on a solid offensive line. I mean, whether it is to run the football or protect your quarterback, I mean, they just don't seem to want to commit. The Bears and the Vikings have always prided themselves on top-tier defenses, and frankly, neither have a top-tier defense this year, at least thus far. And in the absence of that, where's your excuse for not spending the money on an offensive line? Like, you can win a Super Bowl with the middle-of-the-road defense. You would have to have a stellar offensive line and offense to supplement that to get that far, though.
And, you know, last year the complaint was, and I saw a little bit of it in this past game. He holds, you know, Fields holds the ball a little too long. When he has time, he holds it a little too long. I actually think he led the league last year holding it like 3.2 seconds or something like that, trying to make those decisions. I still think some of that is inexperience. But as the season went on, he was getting, you know, he was under pressure all the time again, too, and it seems like nothing's changed. And it's funny because you actually have already accelerated us to my end point that I was going to make, which is you talk about money. Look, the Bears need to be sold. Like, the McCaskies need to, you know, take their $1 billion or $2 billion or whatever they're going to get for the team and sell it, and let someone come in here that knows what they're doing. The 85 Bears, and you and I were talking about that before, living off of 85 and then a failed Rex Grossman, you know, Super Bowl appearance with an incredible defense. Like, again, wasted opportunities, right? Living off of that, it doesn't cut it anymore. And we talked about this a little bit last week as well. I'm going to bring it up again because I still think it's incredibly important. You're asking fans to commit large amounts of money to go to games, and at what point are you going to start respecting your fan base who has been loyal to you and loved you for decades. And I really think you're starting to see people and the boos, the boo birds were out like
Big
mid
time.
third quarter, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it was even more towards the beginning of the third quarter. Like fans were obviously done with it because I think going into the game there was such high expectations. What did I say last week? I thought they were going to score 24 points. I think. I mean, and somehow win, and instead, we're not making adjustments. And I'm jumping all over the place a little bit here, but the idea of spending the money, whether it's on an offensive line or to, get someone in here that's going to help with the draft properly. How many draft picks have the Bears traded away to move up? You take Mitch Trubisky, who I still think, if he had some real coaching, might have been serviceable. And I think there's a difference between awful, serviceable, and all pro, right? I think there are
Yeah.
differences there.
Absolutely.
And constantly trading out of our spots and not yielding anything from it really, even though I still think Fields could be pretty darn good if we put him in the situation to do so. I think the argument for wide receivers and running backs is over. Like, I think he's got those tools in place. Now we're going to give the guy a chance to throw the ball. I'm going to make one more analogy. He's got to air it out every once in a while, even if he overthrows it, because it keeps the defense honest.
Yeah.
Right? The more you're not doing that, you're letting your defense pile up in the box and get even a stronger rush on him. And it's what I would tell my kids all the time, whether it was soccer or basketball. And I know this, I brought this up last week, but I want to bring it up again for all of our live viewers out there. I would always tell my players in soccer, like, you got to shoot outside even if it sails wide right or left or goes sailing way over the top of the goal, you got to take those long shots to open things up so we can attack and maybe get a breakaway. In basketball, you got to shoot some threes, even if they're clanking off the rim or you're airballing them. You've got to do it because the defense still needs to step to you. Because even if you make one of them, it's going to make them start to think, and then you're able to get to the rim a little bit easier. You got to air the ball out, and he's got an arm for it too.
Yeah, and that's a criticism I've had of the Packers before too, is that with Mike McCarthy, a lot of the second half game plan, especially in the third quarter, fourth quarter too, but especially there's a long string of time in the third quarter, we'd run the ball all three downs and punt. Or we'd run the ball and throw a 2-yard swing pass or a negative yard swing pass and punt. And we never aired it out. He wouldn't let Aaron Rodgers throw the ball. You saw it with Favre too on occasion. Like, you got to stretch the field. You can't just throw sideline to sideline, or 1-2 yards down the field, or toss the ball backwards or hand it off. You have to stretch the field vertically. And likewise, you can't always throw to the boundary. That's what drives me crazy about some of the NFC North play calling, which I think famously we were always an attack the middle division. I remember seeing, because San Francisco kind of brought that, in the late 80s, early 90s, they brought that middle attack with the West Coast offense. And to be honest, I feel like the Packers picked it up. The Bears were doing it for a while. Minnesota with Dante Culpepper did it. And then all of a sudden, pocket passing went by the wayside, and you got, your Colin Kaepernicks of the world. And don't get me wrong, it's an interesting style of quarterbacking. It works for a little bit, but they weren't good down the field throwers. I mean, Lamar Jackson, I think, is one of the most overrated quarterbacks for that very reason. He can't get the ball down the field. Kirk Cousins, same thing. He can't throw it deep. I've seen him complete, a handful of deep passes, mostly to Justin Jefferson, who the only reason he makes that pass is because Jefferson's 4 yards away from anybody else.
Right.
He just, that guy's an amazing receiver. I much as I hate to say it, I wish he was a Packer, because, man, that guy with Aaron Rodgers, or even that guy with Jordan Love, and I'll get to Love in a little bit here, but, being able to move the ball over the defense, down the field, whether you get somebody free in the middle, free to the boundary, free on the slant, it doesn't really matter. You have to go beyond the sticks. You can't just keep doing these couple dink and doink plays. Now, that's all well and good if you have, 4 or 5 wide, and they're all running short routes, and the defense is confused, and you catch them. Somebody's going to break free eventually. The problem with that is you got to have a real quick release. Justin Fields does not. Kirk Cousins does not. Jared Goff does not. Those 3 quarterbacks can't get that done. Jordan Love, I didn't see a whole lot out of that, but it remains to be seen. But Rodgers had a quick release. Problem was, if Rodgers didn't like his receiver on that quick route, he just overthrew it or threw it away or took a sack or did something else that was just baffling. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work. But like I said last week, there's a dying art in football, and that's the pocket passer. The true blue, I'm going to stand there. Maybe I take a hit once in a while, but a quick release, but able to launch it. And I think of, and I don't like to think of Big Ben Roethlisberger, but I think he's the last real quarterback who could do it, other than Tom Brady, which he's just he's gifted, so we can't really count him for anything. But on the flip side, Bears mistakes aside, I was really impressed with what I saw to Jordan Love. I liked what I saw in the preseason. I didn't love.
Hello.
I didn't love what I saw to Jordan Love, but I liked it. I thought there was a lot of potential there. He had some good deep balls. He had some rocket arm problems where he either A, overthrew it, or B, threw it so hard it got tipped, and I'm like, there were a couple he threw into double or triple coverage, and I'm like, but you know what? I kind of like that feeling. I gotta admit, it was exciting in a way. I know those are rookie moves, and it's he's not a rookie, but he's a rookie.
He's a rookie.
Those are young guy mistakes that every quarterback makes, and that's totally acceptable. I have no qualms with that at all. But it also kind of reminded me of a little bit of that. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to try and force something. I'm going to do something to try and move the ball down the field that, quite frankly, Aaron Rodgers really didn't do. And for as entertaining as it was to watch Rodgers, he could be very boring. He took a lot of the safe passes, and then he would bomb it to Devontae Adams for a touchdown, which is great. I'm not complaining. But, it was... I grew up with Favre, so I am the kind of guy that wants to see the occasional spectacular catch between 3 receivers or 3 defenders. I want to see that 90-yard bomb down the field that everybody thinks is just wild, and holy crap, there's actually a receiver there.
Right.
Well, and then I think we had a return for a touchdown too. Did we not?
I believe you did, yeah.
Yeah, a punt return for a touchdown. And I had to take off the glasses and go, did that just happen? Our special teams for years now has been questionable at best. And now we've got a guy running a punt back for a touchdown. Now, again, Packer fans, temper this. It's the Bears. But, I have to say, on most facets of the game, I was really thrilled with what I saw. Minus, of course, Aaron Jones pulling a hammy.
Yeah. But you've got a backup that's going to come in and run the same way. It doesn't. And I know we're bringing up a lot of things from last week, but that's okay because we're referencing that game anyway. That goes to show again. I told you that I respect the Packers because they've always made good draft choices or brought in people that could contribute properly or can back up somebody, and you could swap out pieces. At any old time. But you've mentioned several things that I think also point to 2 different ideas or thoughts here that I have. By the way, new segment. What do you see from a Bears to Packers perspective and a Packers to Bears perspective? So here's what I see for your team. I think it was addition by subtraction. I think Rodgers leaving let LaFleur step into the role of actually being the head coach, and everyone's embraced it. You have one heck of a head coach, and let me tell you why. You were winning at the half and went in and made adjustments that propelled you even further ahead when maybe you didn't really need to do that. But you did it anyway because you have a heck of a coach. Our guy, whose name I shall not even say because I get nauseous just thinking about it, maybe it doesn't make any adjustments. Like it was the same old from the first half, and again, nothing changes. How do you do that when you're a coach? You have halftime for a reason. You have assistants for a reason. You have guys up in the box for a reason to feed you information as a head coach so you can make the adjustments that you need to, or listen to your players and hear what they are. I tell my players this, right? I'm not on the field or I'm not on the court. I see things, and yes, I have a lot of experience, right? Because I'm older. I played the game for a long time, but there's still something to be said for listening to your players at any level of athletics and taking into consideration what they're saying and maybe making some adjustments off of that. We don't do any of that. I think you're in a very strong position because your coach is finally able to coach this year. And again, that's an outsider's perspective, looking at what you have there and just what I've seen the past weekend. Well, one more thing, and then I would love for you to retort and tell me what you see with the Bears. I'm also trying to temper myself a little bit and say it's week 1. Maybe we made some adjustments this week. Maybe things will change against Tampa Bay. I doubt it. But I will try and remain very open to the idea that we might have a chance. But here's the caveat. Welcome to year like 25 or 30 of thinking that. And I'm sick of it as a Bears fan. Doesn't mean I don't love the Bears or any of that. Actually, probably means I love the Bears a lot because I want to see some success. But like, we've got to break this pattern, and we are not putting ourselves in a position to do so.
I mean, that's yes. to steal a Lord Utherism, yes. For those of you who follow us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. You'll find out what yes is to Lord Uther. I mean, first off, I appreciate the feedback on Matt LaFleur. I couldn't agree more. I think this year he really does have the opportunity to coach again. I think the first couple years with Rodgers, he did that, and they worked well in tandem, and I think the organization made some moves that Rodgers didn't like, and it brought out, to be honest, the worst in Aaron Rodgers. Again, this is an outsider's perspective. I don't know what really went on, but I think we all kind of surmise things and pick things up. And Favre admitted to stuff years later, and maybe someday Aaron Rodgers will admit to things. But, I look at it from the perspective of, I think LaFleur was like, you know what? You want me to trust you? I'm going to give you this season. I'm going to trust you. And it didn't work. And for 5 weeks, Rodgers played with a broken thumb and screwed the pooch for us. And then it was a healing thumb, and he screwed the pooch for us. So, LaFleur's like, look, dude, I gave you the reins. You couldn't do it. You couldn't beat the Lions in Week 17. That's on you, buddy.
Right.
And deservedly so. But I do think he's got the buy-in of the team. I think finally, again, we are the Green Bay Packers and not Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. It's kind of like Destiny's Child was a perfectly fine group, and then Beyonce became Beyonce, and you can't have Destiny's Child anymore. It's a weird reference for me to make, but there you have it. Here's a guy who did it. I look forward to it again, like you said, with caution. It's week 1, and it's the Bears, so it's like we always play better against a rival. But the rival usually always plays better against us too. I didn't feel that this time. Like you said, I felt that the head coach down there had a game plan and stuck to it, the way Mike McCarthy used to stick to things. And if there's one thing that annoys me more, it's sticking to the game plan when the game plan doesn't work. I know that's an old Bill Parcells thing, an old West Coast offense thing, and blah, blah, blah. Look, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you have to change. I don't care if you change on the fly. I don't care if you change at halftime. you have to change. If you're running it straight up the gut and you're not getting any yardage and then you have to punt every other possession, you're not going to win the game. Change your game plan. I don't care if it's quarter one, minute 5, doesn't matter. Do it. And I think that's what players want. And you're right. I think coaches should listen to player input. Now, there are certain players that will grab their coach and by the ear and yell at him and be like, "No, you got to give me the ball." And it's like, "No, get the hell out of my face." And you need some of that too. You need to be able to stand up to a diva. But go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, I got to throw this in just real quick. But sometimes you got to sell as a coach, right? Even if your player is way off, you're like, "Oh yeah, this is great. I see the same thing. So let's try and do this. Or I hear you. Yeah, we'll make that adjustment next." I mean, you got to sell. Whether it's we can win today, or I hear what you're saying, so they at least believe in it. You got to sell a little bit. It's like the conversations you and I have about being a leader. You've got to sell sometimes. It's kind of what I'm going through right now. Being a teacher, you've got to sell I got to sell to the kids. I have to sell so they buy into it, right? Not in a bad way. You're not doing anything, but play it up. You listen to them. You talk them through it. You acknowledge you're not always right. There are things that you have to do to sell, and
Absolutely.
there's no selling. And I'm sorry I cut you off, but I want to throw in one more thing. Aaron Rodgers just being who he was as a huge personality, I think intimidated a lot of players on that team because you're right. And I saw it too, and I saw it for years, and I know we would always talk about it. If you drop one pass, you're in his doghouse and you're not getting out. Or it was very, very tough to get out of it, where he would literally rather throw the ball out of bounds sometimes than either take a chance throwing to that person or throwing to him at all, just to make a point, which I still don't know what that
And we
point
lost
is.
games because of that. It's one thing in preseason or practice or scrimmage or early in a game. Like if it's first quarter, like, okay, Watson drops that big first pass last year. Fine. Cut him off for a quarter. Be like, "Look, dude, I ain't throwing your way. I don't care if you're wide ass open. You got to take your lumps." But first of all, I don't agree with that, but if you're going to do that, fine. But then jump back, second quarter, say, "All right, here's your second chance. You get open, you're getting the ball. You better catch it." Doesn't catch it again, then you have a conversation. But at some point, you got to acknowledge, hey, we got to win the game. We got to score points. You put your ego aside, put your whatever you want to call it aside. But yeah, I think players were intimidated. I think we lost good players who probably would have performed better to other teams because they wanted to get traded or they didn't get the playing time, so the team was like, "Well, we don't really need them. They're not playing. They're not effective when they're out there." Well, it's not that they're not effective necessarily. It's that Rodgers isn't going to throw to them. And that is where, and I bring this up, and I brought this up for years, that is where Brett Favre will always be the better quarterback. You cannot argue this point. He was the better leader. He could make anybody look like an all-pro superstar. Brett Favre made some of the worst Vikings receivers look like all-stars when he played for the Vikings. He did the same thing with the Jets. And what did Rodgers do with the Jets? We'll talk about that in a bit, but it's like Rodgers couldn't do that. He could make guys look good. He just chose not to. He had his clique. He didn't want to be a leader. He said that many times. He's like, "I don't want to be a leader in the locker room. I want somebody else to take up that mantle. I don't want that." Why, when you're the face of the team, would you not want that? It's always been a question in my mind. But anyway, before we get to that, outsider's perspective on the Bears.
Please.
Well, where do I begin? And that's, I think, the question that the Bears got to ask themselves. Ownership aside, because I do think the McCaskies are a problem, but not coming from a team perspective that has an owner, I don't know that I'm qualified to comment on ownership, frankly. As an owner of my team, I do think I can comment on general management, draft styles, and I look at the scouting practices of the Bears. I don't know what reports they're getting or what they're looking at or what they're considering when they take players, but I don't think I've ever, and I will be the first to admit, up until a couple years ago, I didn't watch the draft. I didn't care. I've never heard of a draft class of the Bears, aside from Justin Fields being the only like rookie pick I've ever noticed. I've never heard of them drafting any kind of superstar or anybody who's supposed to be a superstar. Mitch Trubisky. I remember when they picked up Mitch Trubisky. I was like, okay, they need a quarterback. I mean, they've needed one every year, a couple of times a year for the last 25 years. Yeah, of course they picked up a quarterback. But then they didn't do anything with him. And then they traded him. And it's like, well, what the hell is this all about? You know, I think that year, didn't they like sign Nick Foles like just before the season started or something?
Yeah, yeah, I'm almost positive.
It's like you draft this rookie quarterback who's supposed to be the guy. And don't get me wrong, I understand wanting your next franchise quarterback to sit behind a veteran and learn the ropes and learn the system. Nick Foles didn't know the system. Nick Foles was coming from a team that, I mean, I think, didn't he just go to the Super Bowl like a couple years before that and win? So he was coming in, he was still a high, dollar desirable quarterback. I mean, there was nothing wrong with the Nick Foles at that time. And he did nothing with the Bears. I don't remember if he got hurt or what the story was, but then Trubisky stepped in and did absolutely nothing. And it was the system. The whole drafting philosophy in Chicago just baffles me. Now, I can't say that I'm, shall we say, 100% on board with Ted Thompson's draft and develop. Now, I know it's worked, so it's hard for me to argue, but I think about draft and develop, and I look at it from the perspective of how many chances to get to the Super Bowl did we miss because we decided not to pick up a star free agent or a couple star free agents. We chose not to pursue Khalil Mack, and the Bears got him. And the Bears defense was a championship level defense that had we picked up Khalil Mack, our, I think, top 15 defense may have been a top 10 or a top 5. Now, granted, my guy Kenny Clark, who I'm still excited to see every week, and now his other compatriots on the team, I mean, we've got what appears to be a very good defense this year. Again, week 1, we played the Bears. We've got a decent test in a couple of weeks here, but, I think of it from a Bears perspective as much as ownership is a problem, I think it really starts with the front office. I think you need a good, solid GM or a head coach who's also GM, preferably. I've always thought that that's your most effective strategy. The guy actually working with the players, helping to pick the players that are going to come in next. And then maybe new scouts. I mean, maybe you clean house completely.
I was just about to hearing you talk through all that made me think the scouts are just as important as who the head coach is, at least in this situation. And say whatever you want about Bill Belichick, that guy can sniff out talent anywhere, and he has a system. Why I'm going to Bill Belichick right now, I don't know, but who cares?
Because he's the best coach of all time, maybe?
Well, he's got both those things, and he gets the respect of the play. It's like it's all those things put together, which, again, when you have Tom Brady all those years, yes.
But Tom Brady didn't make those teams. That's the thing. He took pay cuts so they could get the top talent.
Well, and I was talking to my students the other day about leadership and military tactics, and we started talking a little bit about the Civil War, and I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. The South was winning at first because they had excellent military leaders who had strategy. And I gave the analogy of the Chicago Bulls. And I go, Michael Jordan, I will argue anyone with this, greatest player ever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But he didn't win until Phil Jackson was in place. And then when Jordan leaves, Jackson almost takes him back to the finals again without Jordan. And so Jordan needed the coach that had the Zen about him, like he even said. Jackson was a Zen guy, the philosophy. He had the leadership and the respect of those players. I mean, he had Dennis Rodman for 3 years and kept that dude under control. That said something. When you had Rodman and Pippen, who couldn't stand each other before that, and he had Tex Winter, who had the triangle offense that Jackson put into place. Then Jackson leaves the Bulls and goes to the Lakers and does it again, and then does it without Shaq. Yeah, he had Kobe Bryant, but Kobe had other coaches, right? So, yes, you can have all the talent in the world, but you need the right coach to mesh with it. You need the leadership and the respect.
Yeah.
And I'm coming, and I'm going to go back to LaFleur on this. I feel like because he has a chance to coach, he's got that. Like he's got the ear of the team. Yeah, maybe he does have their respect right now. I love Jordan Love's. I love Jordan Love's press conference last week, or talking afterwards, where he was just like, "Hey, got another game next week. It's just the beginning." Like very humble with everything he was saying. Like he was saying all the right things. To me, that's also a sign of buying into something. So I didn't mean to cut off what you were saying about the Bears, but it just kind of sparked that thought about Belichick and the scouts and all that. You're right. It's very
and I agree. And I was going to get to the Jordan Love press conference as well and say, the humility of that kid is admirable. He played a hell of a game. I mean, even though it was against the Bears, for that being your regular season true blue debut, the kid played a hell of a game. He had every right to be boastful and not be humble. Now, I'm not going to say if we beat the Vikings the first time around, he should be drinking Grape Crush like Aaron Rodgers. But, he had every reason to have some ego, and he's very system. He's very, we did a good job today. We're going to continue to do our work and get better, and we got another game coming. That's the mentality to have. Play all the way to the Super Bowl like that.
Well, he came into Soldier Field.
Yeah.
You go into your probably one of the greatest rivalries in football, maybe in all sports, but at least in football, right? Mm-hmm. He comes into Soldier Field and does what a great player would do. I just call him a great player, and he hasn't played that much yet, but he shuts the crowd up. And he even gets the crowd to boo for their own home team. I mean, that says a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
That is very compelling. And as a Packer fan, like you put Brett Favre in that situation most given years, and I'd say, yeah, we got this. Yeah, I'm not worried about the Bears. No matter which Bears team we're playing.
Right.
Rodgers, kind of same thing. But a rookie, well, not rookie, but basically rookie quarterback. Yeah. I mean, I was going into that thinking, you know what, this could be a long season if the Bears come out and they're good. It could be a long season if we don't do something to make a statement here. And you're right. Greatest sports rivalry. I'll go on record and say it's the greatest sports rivalry. To go into that house, which historically is tough for even Tom Brady's teams to win at, who I consider to be the greatest of all time, behind Brett Favre, it's hard for anybody to win in Soldier Field at any time of the year against any of the Bears teams they've ever fielded. Like, even the worst Rex Grossman team really could beat just about any other team that walked through those gates. And that's something that, that's why the Bears are such a storied franchise, is that they have home field advantage in ways that, it's hard to predict. I've seen them win games they definitely should not have because it was at Soldier Field. And, it's not that different from the Chiefs or, the Lions or the Vikings. They all kind of have those same advantages, but it's something special, especially for a team that is so vocal about their number one priority every year being beat the Green Bay Packers. And they're going to have a tough time playing Tampa. The thing is, Tampa's not a good team. They really aren't. And it also says that the Vikings aren't a good team because they played against this team and they aren't good either. But Tampa's Baker Mayfield is one of those quarterbacks that he's a surprise guy. He's the dude that's going to come out on the field and he's going to suck it up for 2 quarters of the game. And then he'll have 2 or 3 possessions in the other 2 quarters that are just like, Where has this Baker Mayfield been for this team this whole time?
I mean, you, again, I'll fight anyone on this one. You can say whatever you want about Baker Mayfield. You know what he is confident in his ability. And that's all you need sometimes, especially at the pro level, is just the confidence in who you are. He's never doubted himself in any situation he's been in. Like, he's always thought he should be the man. And again, there's something to be said for that. And I think with Baker Mayfield, I'm going to make a little bit of a comparison to maybe a Geno Smith right now in Seattle. Maybe in a couple years and he continues to work, maybe Baker Mayfield is making some better decisions and is looking a little bit better. To me, the sky's the limit for him in Tampa Bay. What's the expectation there? I mean, the expectation is he could grow. So if I'm the Bears, again, it's week 2. I think this is going to be a very close game, and I know we'll probably get into that in a little while here in terms of what our predictions are. But, if I'm the Bears, I might be a little bit worried about this guy just coming out there and slinging it around, because that's going to be his attitude, and that's what he's going to want to do. With that said, I just railed the Bears for a good 40 minutes. I'm going to say 2 things maybe that they did well. When Fields dropped back, did like a 3-step drop and planted that back foot and fired, mostly on slants, he was completing those. And maybe that's what he needs more of, is a 3-step drop go. You can't let him drop back. It's almost like you maybe need to take a little bit of the decision-making away from him, because let him complete 4, 5, 6 passes, and then maybe you drop him back. Let the line get some confidence. Let them feel, like they can handle things, handle the pressure. Complete a couple, 5 yards here, 7 yards there. Now you're moving the ball down the field. We're handing it off a little bit. But at least let the guy start getting a little bit of a rhythm, and then we can start taking some chances or doing, maybe a 5 or 7 drop, whatever. But that's something I thought he did well.
I agree. And I know it's not most coaches' philosophies these days, because you want to establish the run early, but I think for the Bears it's the opposite. I think you want to establish the pass. I think you want to get Fields throwing a couple 3 to 5 yards once or twice, and then kind of run in to finish off maybe on 3rd and short. And I think, the running back he's all right, but with the offensive line you've got, you're going to have to run by committee to make sure nobody gets hurt. And I honestly think, if you're working to establish that pass, that's going to probably help to open up the run game more than just repeatedly running it does. I've always felt that way. I think that's how it should always be, but I have seen it work to the opposite, so I don't usually say that. A couple of things that concern me about the Packers, because I could say...
So I was going to ask you, and I want to know what concerns you, because we obviously praised the Pack for a good 40 minutes there.
Right. The errant throws. There were a couple of them, a couple that probably would have been picked by a better defense. Again, I think there's a little more gunslinger in Jordan Love than there was in Aaron Rodgers, which is going to take some getting used to for Packer fans. And we're the kind of fan base that will accept your faults to a certain point. I think a lot of the fans these days didn't grow up with Favre or as much, so they're a little less accepting of inaccuracy. And that's going to be tough for the kid to overcome if he suddenly gets the interception kick. That being said, I think the tutelage of Aaron Rodgers is going to benefit him because, 1, he's probably going to be more accurate, and 2, I think he'll be able to shake off that first or second interception and still keep calm and collected, not lose it. I think Matt LaFleur is going to have a lot to do with that too, but I do see that as a big concern because, we don't really have a great defense coming our way for a while, it looks like, but, that doesn't mean a mediocre defense isn't going to maybe pick those up. To be frank, we played a bad defense in the Bears. It is week 1. They're definitely worse than they'll probably be mid-season. I think the Bears are going to get better. And that may have something to do with good players getting injured on other teams, as it typically does. But that's football. I just think that that's something that I'm sure LaFleur's working on. I don't think it, and I know Love is probably very cognizant of. You don't have throws like that and go, ooh, put a little too much on that, or oh, I shouldn't have thrown that.
Right.
And that's film study, and I think Love, like Rodgers, like Favre, they've learned from each other, on down the line that studying film is huge. And I think you see that paying off already in just what Love has done in the last couple of games with the preseason and with training and practice. I really think we're going to see that pay off. The other thing that concerns me, it's Aaron Jones. Pulling a hamstring. I mean, he really helped. We weren't playing all that great until Jones decided to let loose in the second half. And then coming up with a bad hammy, he'll probably be back in a couple of weeks, if not, the third game against the Saints. But that's a tough break. I love A.J. Dillon. He is a workhorse, and he will break just as many runs. And our backups for running back are hella solid. Like, they are very, very good.
Who's this Patrick Taylor kid? I'm because I just went to your stats from last week. He had five attempts for 22 yards, 4.4 average. Jones is average. Man, listen, 4.6. I'm sorry, I can't help myself. 4.6 yard average for Jones, 4.4 for Taylor. Drops off 1.5 for Dillon, but he's your workhorse, like you said. So I can maybe see it dropping off, and then Love averaged 4 yards a run as well. Go Bears!
I mean, that's your scout right there. I mean, we picked up our class of running backs. We had this preseason. Them's were some hard picks right there to figure out who's going to make the final roster, because we had Jones and Dillon. So, do you really need more than one or two? Like, I'm sure we have a couple on the practice squad, because it's like, you guys are too good to let go. We're going to pay you to just practice with us, and you're going to get a call. Like, at some point, your running back needs a week off, or you need a third or a fourth guy sitting on the bench just in case for the big games, right? And the Packers have been really good about that. I think back to the days of Sam Congatto. I mean, I have his rookie card. I don't think he played more than a couple of seasons, but the man stepped on the field and took us into the playoffs, basically, because our top guys were hurt. And, we had several running backs through the Favre era and through Rodgers era where they just kind of guest starred for a few games for a season and made a huge impact. So I'm not concerned at running back. I just don't want Aaron Jones to have an injury that's going to sideline him for too long, because he's so versatile. He's a receiver. He's a running back. And he is a very good leader on the team too. I think his energy. I mean, I've been at Lambeau and seen him out there practicing or exercising before the game. He engages with the crowd. He's pumping up his fellow players. One thing I noticed is our sideline had a lot of good energy. And granted, we were winning, but it was really cool to see players on the sideline, not just like, studying the playback on the tablet and being real quiet, but like talking with each other, engaging, strategizing, pumping each other up, getting each other, psyched up for the next drive, or cheering on the defense. That's a Favre era thing. Rodgers really wasn't all that notable for, John with the rest of the crew. He kind of left that up to the other guys. I think if Jordan Love does some of the Favre type stuff, I think he's going to have a very good career. That's my third concern, is I want Jordan Love to be himself. I don't want him to clone what Rodgers did on the field and on the sideline.
Right.
I want him to be himself. I want him to take all the good stuff, of course. But, I want him to really feel empowered to be Jordan Love and not feel like he needs to be Aaron Rodgers or a Brett Favre. I think he's doing just fine. I think there was a lot of hesitancy among many of the fans because, while we were happy the diva was gone and we were all, quote-unquote, embracing the Love era, everybody was holding their breath until we won that game. Or at least until it was well in hand and we knew we were going to win. We're like, okay, all right, this kid might actually work out. So, I urge other Packer fans, not just give the kid a chance, but trust the process. He's still young. He's going to make mistakes. We're going to lose some games we shouldn't lose. But that being said, the same thing happened under Rodgers. The same thing happened under Favre. We just got to trust the process and not be afraid to let him be himself out there a little bit and learn some hard lessons. Now, looking forward this week, Packers got the Falcons in Georgia. Tough place to win, but not a tough team.
No. So, what are your thoughts then?
I haven't been paying enough attention to the Falcons because they've been pretty irrelevant
Right.
for a while. I think it's going to be a surprisingly difficult game for a couple reasons. I think because, to be honest, the Falcons have that X factor where nobody's really been paying attention to them. That being said, I know the Packers have been studying film all week and all this stuff, and their scouting reports are all they run these plays and run that play, watch for this, and okay, we're going to do just fine, but those are the trap kind of games that I always look for on the schedule. That and the game after the bye week is almost always guaranteed a loss.
Yeah.
But this is week 2. We just came off a big win in Chicago. If we could pull out a win against the Falcons, that's going to put us in a real nice spot. But to be honest, our first really 3 games are kind of fluffy. We got a hapless Bears team, no offense.
None.
A Falcons team that what were they like 4-14 or 4-13 last year? Like not good. And then a Saints team that's okay. Like they're probably going to be a tougher team to beat, but they're still not. Nothing against Derek Carr, and they have Jamal Williams, but I just don't think they've got all their pieces in play. Where I think we're going to do all right because I think we've got good synergy on both sides of the ball. And then we face off against the Lions on Thursday night. It's a short week, but it's going to be at home. I feel like that one's going to be kind of in hand. What I saw of the Lions in week 1, they did not look like a good team. Now, they were playing Philadelphia, weren't they? Was it Philadelphia? No, Chiefs, right?
The Chiefs, because
Yeah,
I was looking at the Bears schedule. I'm going to
right.
make some comments on that.
That's right. The Vikings just played Philadelphia, and they look like crap. My bad. Sorry, Detroit fans. They beat the Chiefs, but they barely beat the Chiefs. And that was a Chiefs team that was playing real bad football with real great players.
Again, week one, because people are all over the Chiefs too. I think it's kind of early to be making those judgments. Didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going.
Oh, you're right. And I was just going to say, it is early to judge the Chiefs. So, Patrick Mahomes, don't get down on yourself. I'm sure you're going to have a great year.
And
It's
we
like anybody
appreciate
who
your
got on
opinion.
Aaron Rodgers last year, like week 1, abysmal loss. The year before that, week 1, abysmal loss. Then he had great years. Well, last year wasn't great, but, he still had some great games.
But it's like fantasy football week 1. Like you have a guy that'll catch for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. You're like, I'm going to pick that guy up. And then you pick him up and he does nothing the rest of the year.
How many times have I done that?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Well, because it's week 1. Give me a score for that Packers game.
I think it's going to be an interesting first half. I think we're going to see like a 17-14. I think the Packers will come up to 17 with a field goal late in the second. They'll probably get stalled out on a drive like at the 30-yard line, kick a medium field goal, and go in with some confidence. Third quarter is going to be a bit sluggish. I think as exciting as we were in the third quarter this past week, I think we're going to go back to our more historical Packers sluggish third quarter this week because we don't have an Aaron Jones to like suddenly pick up the ball and run for 90 yards. Again, nothing against A.J. Dillon. I think he's going to have a fantastic game. I could see A.J. Dillon getting 3 touchdowns, to be honest with you. However, I think that, when we look at what's going to happen this week, I think we're going to probably have to come back in the fourth quarter. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, and it's not going to be the defense's fault. I think it's just going to be they're going to get tired. Like there's going to be a long, sustained Falcons drive. They get a touchdown. It's hard fought, and I think we end up going 3-0 because there'll be some momentum shift in the third, and then they'll come up. It's not going to be a huge come from behind, but it's going to be, they're going to score 14. We'll probably score maybe 3 or 7, and then we'll be back by 1 or 2 scores. In the fourth quarter, we'll probably win the game. I'm going to say it's probably going to be like a 31-24, 31-21 victory, something like that. But it's going to be a little uncomfortable. There's going to be some moments where it's like, all right, Love needs to step up his game. And I think that's going to be his proving ground. And I think he's going to be cool about it. I think he's going to be real calm. He's going to be like, all right, I got this. And that's going to be it. There's going to be no showmanship, no showboating.
I agree.
It's going to be grinding it out.
My one warning to Packers fans, be careful of the nameless teams. And what I mean by that is I looked at Atlanta's roster. That's why I'm looking off to the side because I'm looking up things. I can't tell you one guy on that team. Mm-hmm. Like a wide receiver, a running back, nothing. And I think sometimes when you have teams like that and they have nothing to lose, you don't want to play teams that have nothing to lose because they go into what the heck mode and they do whatever, and that's when you get your close games like what you're talking about. So I think you're pretty spot on with that. I'm gonna believe in my Bears this week. It's gonna be close. It's not gonna be very high. So I'm gonna go 17-14 Bears. We're gonna get a Santos kick with like 5 seconds left. That's gonna give us that 17-14 victory. So that's my prediction there. Why? Just because I want to see the Bears win. But look, Bears fans, I'll be very honest with you. We don't have a chance until week 5 when we play Washington at Washington. I think Kansas City is going to trounce us when we go to Kansas City. I don't feel good about playing Denver, even though I don't think they're a very good football team. I'm a little nervous about that too. Maybe Washington. And here I was thinking, we might make the playoffs this year. I don't see it.
It's going to be a tough year, I think. I'm looking at the Packers schedule right here, and I'm. This is me being realistic. I think we could go into the bye week 5-0. I really think we could.
I'm going to take a look here as well.
I am also worried about our Broncos matchup. Mile High is a hard place to win for anybody.
Yeah.
That being said, I think the Broncos are an exceptionally crappy team. And I think Russell Wilson does not play well against the Packers.
I can't believe they've kept him there, but I think they've got a lot of money dumped into him.
They got a ton of money dumped into him. They're stuck with him.
Your schedule's kind of nice.
It's a pretty fluffy schedule. I really don't think we're going to get challenged too much until maybe the Chargers.
Okay.
Or the Steelers. Probably mid-November.
And you're at Pittsburgh. That's a tough place to play.
Yep. And to be honest, I know everybody's on the Lions this year, that they're going to be so great. I don't think they will be. I think those are easy games. The Chiefs, Steelers, Chargers, and that's it. I mean, I think we have 3 really tough games. The Vikings, the thing is about the Vikings, Lions, and Bears, they're our rivals. Any of those games are a toss-up. Even if I think we should win, they're still a toss-up because everybody plays harder against their rivals. That being said, we kind of have a rivalry with the Chiefs, a little bit with the Buccaneers. Those could be tough games. And to be honest, late in the year, those are always tough games. So, and the Panthers game is another one where it's like it's a no-name team.
Yeah.
That they might be really good by then, or maybe they're terrible. I don't know. But it's on Christmas Eve, which I'm really looking forward to because those are my favorite games of the year.
Yeah, see Thanksgiving Day for me. Look at I don't see how you guys don't win the conference, right? I mean the division.
I think we could win the conference too, based on the schedule.
Yeah, just looking. I mean, yeah.
I mean, there's a logistically real chance that we could go undefeated. To be honest, if you're basing it off of week 1 performances, now that is one of those stupid, bold predictions that's just not going to happen. I'm not an idiot. But if you want to jump on that wagon, it's not impossible. And if you want to keep up to date with the season and our crazy predictions, you should probably hit the subscribe button, drop us a like, drop us a comment, and tell me how stupid I am for predicting unbeaten season for the Packers. Which, by the way, I'm not predicting. I think we're going to lose 3 or 4 games at least. But I think we're going to have a winning season. I think we're going to win the division. But that's about it right now. I'm not predicting into the playoffs.
All right, before we kind of take this thing home here, what's the one team in the NFC that scares you? I got the team that scares me.
San Francisco.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
And I am going off of just the first week, but man, to our friend APC out there, who's always been a Niners fan.
They got one Purdy quarterback.
Purdy looked Purdy, if you ask me. I mean, he looked Purdy.
Got me a lot of fantasy points.
I mean, I was not expecting that out of him. And let's go back to the conversation we had at the beginning of this incredible live stream that we have about coaching. Coaching. You've got Mr. Irrelevant leading a 49ers team and looking like he could be an all-pro. I mean, that says something again about who you're going to bring in to not just be the face of the team in a sense, but to actually come up with the strategery and all that stuff for it. And like, it had me going, I wish Brock Purdy was a Bear. Do I really? Because how would Purdy be playing if he was on the Bears, right?
Not well.
Which makes me wonder, what would Fields look like if he was on a team like with the 49ers?
Probably a little bit better, honestly.
Probably, yeah.
But you know what? The Bears go through coaches like the Bears go through quarterbacks.
Well, yeah, and again, there's already talk down here of how far does Eberflus make it, and they're already saying this week, and I kind of agree with it. Like, the season's on the line. The season's on the line this week. If we don't do something, we're in a lot of trouble. I mean, I'm just hoping that they show some fire for 4 quarters, let alone getting a win. Because again, to go back to your point about what your sidelines look like versus ours, it's the same old thing we've seen year after year where the Bears are sitting on their sideline like this, like just deflated, defeated. I don't need another year of that. No one needs another year of that.
Nobody wants to see that. I don't even want to see it as a Packers fan. I've always said that the NFL is better off when the Packers and Bears are 2 of the teams to beat in the NFC. Honestly, I no love lost. See, I think there's a lot of misnomers about the Packers-Bears rivalry, and I'm gonna put it to bed right here and cut the cheese, poke the bear. There's a high respect level between these 2 teams for all the right reasons. Now, I'll rag on the Bears any day of the week. But I look at the other teams in our division, right? The Lions have been rebuilding since 1952. The Vikings are an expansion team. The Bears are the only other team that matters. And frankly, even if the Packers have a crappy losing year, it's exciting to watch the Bears win because they have a fan base that turns out that's hungry for a win. Now, I respect the Lions fans because they've always been terrible. And, Barry Sanders, I think, is a great person. But, boy, howdy, it's tough to be a Lions fan. It's tough to be a Bears fan, And it was tough for about, 30-some-odd years to be a Packer fan.
Right.
I mean, the Vikings had a lot of really good years. They don't have any trophies, but they had a lot of really good years. And were kind of perennially competitive and really have been. And I think that's one thing that annoys me the most about Vikings fans. It's probably why we don't have a Vikings fan on this podcast is they kind of self-hate too much and they're never really fun to watch, like the Vikings always seem kind of full of themselves. And that's just an attitude I don't think Bears players have it. I don't think Packers players have it. There are certain other players and certain other teams that they don't have it. It's why I like Patrick Mahomes, but I don't like Joe Burrow. I feel like Joe Burrow is full of himself. I feel like Patrick Mahomes is a humble guy. He's kind of an approachable guy. Not to say these guys don't have egos. Absolutely they do.
They have
But
to. Yeah.
this is the NFL. This is why it's exciting to watch. There's so much to talk about. We could go on and on for days. But I tell you what, this is our first ever live streamed show here at Pending Rebrand. We're going to do more of these because this is fun. And we're hoping that in the future, we'd love to get some of your thoughts live on the air. Now, you have the opportunity to do that by hitting the subscribe button on YouTube right now. We'll be posting when we have live events in the future, so you have time to plan around it and plan your questions. So if you've got questions about the NFL, or if you're a big Star Wars fan or a big Star Trek fan, we podcasts on that too. And, you know, I actually do a weight loss podcast that maybe I'll do a live stream on that. And you can ask me what I do or how I cook my meals or what my journey has been like. Whatever, doesn't matter. We're talking football, and we're going to be talking football all year round. And it's going to be...
You sound like Dave Wanstead right now.
There you go. There you go.
Like that. You sound like Wani. Yeah.
All right. I thought that might be a little obscure, but all right. We got that. We got that.
Real quick before we end, because I can't. Again, I keep wanting you to take us out, but I can't. I got to keep asking questions. Does Rogers? We got it. We still have a little attachment there to Mr. Rogers. You know what I'm going to ask you? Does he come back? Does he just put one more season in? According to him, he's going to be back. What are your thoughts?
I think he wants to, and I think he deserves to come back and really have a season where he can play the way he wants to play. I feel bad for the Jets because they went all in this season. However, they still have a Super Bowl caliber team with Zach Wilson. I thought they would have had that without Aaron Rodgers. They're going to do just fine without him. I do think Rodgers comes back. Unfortunately, I don't think he's coming back to put up the numbers or have the season that I think he wants to have, and I think he retires after that.
I agree.
Personally, I would rather he had retired before this season. And that's no offense to Rodgers. I think he's a fantastic player, one of the greatest of all time. No love lost here in Green Bay. I mean, when he comes back, I'll cheer for him when he comes on the field to retire his number and give his speech. Packer fans, we may have been sick of the drama, but we were sick of the drama with Favre, and we embraced him, and he went and played for the Vikings. You know, the only thing that'll ever burn my bridge with Aaron Rodgers is if he comes back, plays a year with the Jets, and then asks to be traded to the Bears. Then we're done, bro. We are done. You play he go to the Vikings. He go to the Lions. I don't care about those teams. Again, rebuilding since '52, expansion team doesn't matter. You go to the Bears, you're dead to me. I say that somewhat in jest, but I do think he comes back because I'd hate to see the guy go out like that. I would hate to see him retire. Now, if he did, I wouldn't blame him, but I would really hate to see it because he deserves better than that. Even if he had a crappy season, he deserved to at least go out and play out his last year. Like Tom Brady's last season was terrible for Tom Brady. But he deserved it. He deserved to go out playing, which is what he wanted to do, win or lose. I don't have a problem with that. I think there's this like fading away thing that people are afraid of. It's like there's nothing wrong with playing until you fade away into obscurity. You know what I mean? Like the guys that burn out typically weren't all that great to begin with. You know, I think of Mitch Trubisky, I guess, is the one that I think of. Or Brady Quinn. You know, some of those guys who made a big splash in college and came to the NFL and burnt right out. You know, in a couple of games or
Johnny
season.
Football.
John Manziel, yeah. I mean, that guy had problems outside,
right?
But I mean, even still, like Tua in Miami. I'm sorry, but that guy's burning out in a real big hurry.
One more hit. That's the way I keep thinking about that dude.
I feel so
more.
bad for that kid. To be honest, like, we could talk CTE in another episode.
Right, right.
We'll get into those questions and comments in our next live broadcast. I'd like to say thank you to the fans at home and tune in next week to NBC's Sunday Night Football. But no, we thank you here from Cut the Cheese, Poke the Bear. I am Urza Master.
Oh, I'm Lord Uther.
We'll get this one of these days.
Yes.
This is the Midwestern goodbye
Yeah.
version of Cut the Cheese, Poke the Bear. Don't you know? But thank you all for watching. Make sure to subscribe to Pending Rebrand. Drop us a like, drop us a comment. We will be throwing out our usual video version of this podcast to go with the live version. So if you'd rather watch the intro and hear us chat it out, you will certainly get a version of that in the near future. With you, I hope the Packers will be. And I hope the Bears will not be. Have a great football Sunday, football Monday, and we'll
Go
see y'all
Bears.
next week. Go
Bears.
Pack Go.